a great day, great news, something to be happy about. Also, a bad day. Bad news out of Philadelphia. We'll talk about what happened there, and a kid who speaks the truth. All that's coming up right now on I'm Right. Have you smiled today about politics? I know you probably smiled about other things. Oh, those were good mozzarella sticks. Oh, it's nice to see my wife, my kids, my husband, whatever. Good, good. Have you smiled about politics? If the answer is no, you need to fix it. And let me explain why. We have an election coming up. I don't know if you've heard. It's, about a week away. We might lose Donald Trump as president. Okay. And I already don't think we will, and I don't, but we might. Have you enjoyed yourself the last 4 years at all? Be honest with yourself. Be honest with me. Have you enjoyed your last 4 years? Or have you woke up every day as somebody who digs politics and been stressed out? Oh, the left's doing this, the left's doing that. I can't believe they're doing this, I can't believe that. Be honest. You should enjoy yourself more, especially during the good times. I know there are times we're going to get mad. There are times you've seen me get mad. In fact, as I go over the second story we're going to do tonight, I'm probably going to blow a gasket because I'm sick of it. That's fine. But how often have you taken time to enjoy the wins? It's been 4 years of, nothing perfect. Of course not. I've had major disagreements with Donald Trump. And we'll have disagreements over the next 4 years when he gets reelected, as I think he will. But there have been a lot of really great things happen. Things that you care about. Things that I care about. And I'm guilty of this too. I'm not pointing fingers. Sometimes, don't we get too stuck in the mud with it? Don't we get too down in the dumps with it? Think of this. Yes, I think we've lost the culture war. We have a long way to go to start that war again and win it back. Yes, I understand how powerful the left is across the board, but look at what we've done. This could have been 6 years of Hillary Clinton. Wrap your mind around that. 6 years, 4 years of Hillary Clinton. Turns out they only do 4. I went to community college. This could have been 4 years of Hillary Clinton. 4. What does the Supreme Court look like with 4 years of Hillary Clinton? What do the regulatory laws in this country look like with 4 years of Hillary Clinton? The tax laws. What is the COVID response with Hillary Clinton? You think Donald Trump went too all in on COVID in the beginning? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I obviously do, many don't. What is Hillary Clinton's policy there? My goodness, we're probably still all locked in our closets somewhere. Think about that. And back to the Supreme Court. What does it look like for generations if the Supreme Court, you and I wake up this morning and it's 6-3 with these hardcore leftists? And remember the people the leftists put on the Supreme Court. They don't even pretend as if they're going for some originalist judge who will follow the Constitution. They don't even really pay that lip service anymore. They go for the most hardcore, activist, radical leftists in the world. If we wake up this morning, you and I, and it's a 6-3 majority for the left on the Supreme Court, the things they would shoot down over the next 30 years would make your head explode. The things they would allow over the next 30 years would make your head explode. Now, leftists have to sit back and take that medicine. And you know what's wrong with that? Not a daggone thing. Don't do that thing either, where you get victor's guilt. Conservatives do this all the time. We'll get a victory somewhere and we think to ourselves, oh man, I can't really celebrate it. Well, not openly. And I certainly, can't look forward to the fruits of this victory because I don't want to appear mean. Oh, screw that. You sit back today, tonight, as you watch my show, you and the fam, and you enjoy the fact we now have a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court. All else aside from the Trump presidency, peace deals, economy, whatever, setting everything else aside. This is lasting. This is 20, 30 years of, I'm not going to say perfect because it won't be, 20, 30 years of relatively good rulings coming from the highest court in the land. Do we have a whole host of problems? Of course, you know, I talk about them all the time. I'm going to talk about some tonight. But today is a day you should be happy. You should smile. You should kick back and think, life is good. If you can't, then you need to re-examine how you look at things. Because the next 4 years might not be like that. Don't forget. Don't be so quick to forget what it was like for 8 years under Barack Obama. I remember. Granted, I was younger and a bit more hot-tempered, but I would lose my freaking mind. Every day you wake up, you know what it's like. You wake up and you're looking at the news and you're like, just want to throw things against the wall. What's he doing? What's he talking about? You might have that. For the next 4 years, you might have apologizing for America, radical leftist policies, bankrupting the country, packing our institutions like Obama did with hardcore leftist activists who will kneecap the next Republican president like they've kneecapped this one. You might have that for 4 more years. You might, in a week. Today is a day to enjoy. So enjoy it. Mitch McConnell seems to be enjoying it.
Look, they've been threatening to pack the court before the Barrett nomination came along, before Justice Ginsburg passed away. These are long-standing threats. They may have ratcheted up a little bit lately, but this isn't anything new. They've been promising to blow up the Senate by changing the filibuster rule, admitting 2 new states, D.C. and Puerto Rico, to give them 4 new Democratic senators, and packing the Supreme Court. They were talking about that earlier in the year. Nothing new, same old threats and intimidation by the hard left in America today.
It's true. Because this is what else happens when we get a big win. The left freaks out. I mean, it hurts to lose, and these people are irrational anyway. So the left freaks out, and they start throwing these threats out there. This is what we're going to do here, and this is what we're going to do there. I saw some idiot out there today online said something about, well, the Republicans, if Biden wins, they're going to have to ask Barrett and Kavanaugh to resign. Otherwise, we'll pack the... I mean, just insane things. And the left freaks. And so we on the right, what happens? We hear these threats and we get scared, right? Oh, man, what if they mean it? Ooh, that would be ugly. I'm scared. Don't let them do that to you. Don't let them take your joy away because they're miserable. You don't have to enjoy their misery like I do. I'm a bad person. You can remain a good person. Just ignore it. Have a good time. This is a good time. Enjoy it. Take a moment. Enjoy 4 years of what has been really, really good. And John Kennedy, I mean, he nailed it about the founders.
This is a victory for our founders. It was never Tucker about her qualifications. You would have to be barking mad to think that she is not qualified in terms of intellect, in terms of temperament, in terms of integrity. This fight was about who's going to make social policy in the United States. And the Congress or the unelected federal judiciary.
That's right. And you know what? To their credit, I know the show's called I'm Right, and I pretty much always am. But you remember, as soon as RBG kicked it, I said, I don't think Republicans are going to nominate her replacement. I think they're going to be weak. I think they're going to be threatened into caving. I don't think they're going to have the balls to do it. And you know what? I was dead wrong. Credit where it's due. Again, not just telling you to be happy, making myself do it too. Credit where it's due. The Senate GOP stepped up and made this happen and pushed this through. And good for them. Nancy Pelosi is, well, she's still Nancy Pelosi. She said this: Congress will have to reverse the damage of a radical Republican court and defend pre-existing condition protections together with every other benefit and protection of the Affordable Care Act. With this usurped Supreme Court seat, oh gosh, the president is ripping away millions of families' health care in the middle of a pandemic that has infected over 8.6 million and killed nearly 250,000 Americans. We must have a Congress that is prepared to remedy what the Supreme Court will do to undermine the health, financial security, and well-being of American families. Nancy Pelosi. On a quick side note, not going to go off on this. I think we're going to do something on this later on in the week. Democrats are really in a pickle with this woman. Nancy Pelosi came out and said, if I'm the next, if the Democrats control the House again, I'm running for Speaker again. Democrats are in a pickle. And you know what's crazy? In private, they'll tell you they know this to be true. Nancy Pelosi is so powerful within her own party because she raises such a stupid amount of money for her own party. Everyone owes her favors, and she's in this huge position of power. However, she's an absolute cartoon character villain. She's a terrible, terrible messenger on behalf of Democrats. She doesn't speak to anybody. She comes off like exactly what she is. An uber wealthy San Francisco liberal. And the Democrats are currently trying to figure out how they're going to win back working class voters in the Rust Belt. And you have Nancy Pelosi up there after 10 bottles of Pinot every single night talking about, the death of everything. And she's awful. Democrats don't know what to do. And guess what? If she runs for Speaker again, she's going to win again too. Lady's got a lot of power. Chris COONS, here we go with the threats.
We've got to have a wide open conversation about how do we rebalance our courts. Yes, the 2 Supreme Court cases that have been stolen, where these processes that are just wildly hypocritical have been used to jam through partisan nominees. But we got to look at our federal courts as a whole, Rachel, because we've seen hundreds of conservative judges put on circuit courts and district courts all over this country in the last 4 years. In many cases, too young, too unqualified, and too far right to be allowed to sit peaceably without our re-examining the process, the results, and the consequences.
Enjoy that. I do. Oh, don't worry about the threats. Don't worry about that. Again, don't let them get to you. You hear that? Young, far-right voices on the court. It's more than just the Supreme Court. Mitch McConnell, to his credit, Donald Trump, to his credit, have taken all those court openings and they have flooded them with our people. This has been a good 4 years for America, and you need to take joy in it. Now, that probably didn't make you uncomfortable, but I'm right. But I know it's election season. I know the stakes are high. I get it. And I get that when you lay down at night, your mind can be going a mile a minute. I don't want to live in a socialist America. Joe Biden can't even talk. Life can get stressful. All you need is an ebb sleep. I just talked Mitchell into getting one. All you need is an ebb sleep. If you are lay awake at night and you're stressed and you can't turn your thoughts off, ebb sleep will help you with that. It applies precise, continuous cooling to your forehead, putting you asleep fast and keeping you asleep. Go to tryebb.com/Jesse. That's tryebb.com/Jesse. Use the promo code Jesse. Get $25 off. We'll be back. Philadelphia, violence. For those who haven't seen it, I will tell you it's readily available out there. And my producers and I, we had a discussion about this on the phone today before the show, whether or not we were going to show you the video of the deadly encounter between the cops and this man in Philadelphia. I always try to be conscious of 2 different things. One, I want you to be entertained and informed while you watch the show. There are 1,000 different options out there. I want you to enjoy it. And I want you to be informed. I want you to know what's going on. But 2, I know, because I get the emails, that you watch with your kids. So many of you watch with your kids, so I'm conscious of that. I chose not to show this one. If you would like to see it for information purposes, it is not difficult to find. Basically, this is what happened. From what you can see in the video, and I cannot stress that point enough, from what you can see in the video, you never get the full context with these videos. From what you can see, a couple cops, there's a man there, a man with a knife, you can clearly see that. Clearly there is some kind of unrest of some kind. I don't know whether there was a fight, a domestic dispute. The cops are there, weapons presented to this man, giving him loud orders. Stop, get down, drop it, stop, get down, order, drop it. The man does not. It's laid out for you on video. The man instead chooses to come at the police officers. And if you're a cop, you have no choice there. They open up on him and shoot him dead in the middle of the road. Obviously, not a great situation all around. Say a prayer for those officers. People forget about that. Many people out there really, really struggle if they have to take a life. Most people struggle if they have to take a life. So say a prayer for them and their families. They might struggle with that. And of course, what happens immediately after?
Oh! Get him! Yeah! 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 That's what I like! What the f*** I like it! That's what I like!
It got worse. They're rioting. They're setting off explosives in Rite Aid, trying to loot safes. They're looting Foot Locker. It's violent. There were over 30 cops injured. I'll show you another video of that in just a moment. But this is what happens when you can never be honest in a country. This is what happens when you have a culture completely based on lies, as we do now. You can't tell the truth about anything anymore. And I know that's why so many of you watch the show. We had a 3-month conversation on race relations in America, and all we came up with was the cops are the problem. The poor urban black community is an absolute disaster in the United States of America. And it's not because of their skin color, and it's dang sure not because of the cops. It's because we have a humongous, the numbers do not lie, family unit problem in the poor urban black community. And that nobody out there has the guts to say that absolutely blows my mind. We have absolutely pushed with government programs and internally for men not to stay home with the woman and raise the kids. And so we have a generations of young men without a father figure to guide them, angry, creating this disaster time and time again. We have crappy schools. We have all kinds of problems. We could actually address these problems if anybody would actually step up and speak about them. But we never get that, do we? We never, ever get that. Instead, we get excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse, enabler after enabler after enabler after enabler after enabler, and I am sick to death of it. And you know what? I'm not just pointing fingers at the disgusting left. I'm not pointing fingers at the Democrats. I'm not just pointing fingers at the media. The right does this all the time, too. You remember what it was like post-George Floyd. What did we get? Did we get, hey, let's straighten up. Let's figure out how to solve the problems of the black community? No. We got excuses and excuses. Well, I guess it kind of is the cops. Where's Tim Scott? Tim Scott has a federal police reform bill. That'll solve these problems. Stop. Let's address the truth about issues. I've told you this before, and it's 100% true. If I gain 150 pounds and become morbidly obese, and I go visit my parents, and I walk in the door of my home, and my mom runs up to me and says, "Oh, hey, Jesse, you look so good. You've never been more handsome." And my dad walks up to me and says, "You look disgusting. Go to the gym before you die of heart disease." Which parent loved me more in that moment? You're not helping anybody by making excuses for them. Stop excusing this madness. Stop enabling this madness. Stop telling people they're victims. Stop telling people cops are the enemy. Stop telling people to resist arrest. Go peacefully. Fight it out in the courts if the cops are wrong. And the cops are wrong sometimes, I admit that. Gosh. All right, we got a lot more show. We'll be back. Joining me now, former Congressman and current Dean of Business at Liberty University, Dave Brat. Congressman, I am in such a bright, sunny mood today. It's not just about the Supreme Court. I've been dwelling. We're a week out from the election. I know everyone else is stressed out of their mind, but I've been dwelling about what's been a really good 4 years. And I think we on the right get too miserable when we're winning. Why are we miserable? It's been a good 4 years.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I saw the president out in Detroit having fun with the Michiganders, telling them all he's done for automotive. There is a ton of good news to get sorted out. It's just unfortunate the mainstream press doesn't want to give any of the good news, right? So we're going to have 30+% GDP growth this quarter, 30+%. And you will not hear about that. You will not hear that statistic reported. It's bigger, coming out of a slump that it's typical to have growth, but not 30+%. You didn't even have that coming out of the Great Depression. So a lot of good news to share. And you're right. We should be optimistic, and everyone needs to get out there and vote.
Why is it so high? Why is that GDP growth so high? I understand part of that is obviously going to be because we went so low with all the coronavirus idiocy, but why is it so high?
Yeah, well, a lot of it's all just that cooped up demand, right? I mean, everybody's been, staying at home, and now the ice is cracking. People are getting out. Businesses are starting to go. You're starting to see a normal future emerge. And there's huge energy that's going to be exerted. If we can keep it that way, it'd be phenomenal, but that'd be hard to sustain.
What do you see for the future of it? Is this going to be a cap? I know it's not going to be 30-some% every quarter. I'm not an idiot, but do you think we really have some growth potential coming over the next couple of years, or is this going to plateau pretty quick?
Well, I think you better put a pro-growth president and Congress in order. And so with the House being held by Pelosi and the Green New Deal, et cetera, what they mean by growth is growth in government, right? The Green Deal, a multi-trillion-dollar deal, is a growth in government expenditures. So when you're talking about economic growth, you're talking about the private sector. And you're hopefully talking about investment in capital and human capital, which not only gives you growth in the current year, but that capital stays in place for a decade or so, and gives you growth throughout the decade. And so that's what we've been missing. And then, even more than that, our higher ed is in the complaint business, putting people in buckets based on what particular ethnic group you fall in, instead of training kids in finance and accounting and business. And so, our universities got to get their act together before our growth rate goes up and is sustained growth. Human capital is about equal to physical capital in its contribution to economic growth.
I understand our university system is an absolute disaster. You've had this conversation. You and I have had this conversation 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Do you see this coronavirus stuff actually helping fix that? So many people staying home, people realizing, whoa, we are teaching our kids to really hate this place?
Yeah, and the $60,000 a year price tag is stunting. We're kind of at an upper bound of what people can pay and how much debt you can go into. And so in the higher ed world, right, this accreditation, right, and going out and getting certificates that show you have expertise, right, in Microsoft or Cisco systems or IT or IBM. You go out and you get a few certificates, and that's proof to the business world that you have some certainty and certain skills to deliver. And that's going to be the new world moving forward. So at Liberty, we're getting ready for that world, and we're getting our kids ready for the work world. And so I wish the rest of the universities were acting in that way as well.
Talk to me about the court system. I think people don't realize enough that there's a lot more to our court system as far as justices go than just the Supreme Court. There's all these lower courts, and we've been hammering at that for 4 years now.
Yeah, we've had a good run under the president with federal judges, et cetera. And it is surprising that we're more than breaking even, given how academia is slanted. But on the judge front, we've been doing well, and there's good news to report there. And, the law is supposed to be neutral and kind of passive. And so the left, Biden came out today with some remarks that he's going to rotate Supreme Court members, right? I mean, I've never heard of this before. And so what he means is, they're going to rotate Supreme Court members in such a way as to achieve outcomes they want, because they know that under the 6-3 court you have now, if you just interpret the law instead of making law, right, they know they can't get their green agenda through the House and the Senate and the president, right? Unless they win all three, then we're going to have problems. But that's why they have to go at the court, right? They want to make law with the courts. And they're able to do that, right? Like the Ninth out in San Francisco, et cetera. They can just make law. And then the Supreme Court has to slap it down. But for several months, they get their way. And so it's very important, young people out there, pay attention. If you've got a passion for the law, we need you.
Explain, can they do it? I guess, look, I'm of the impression that only Republicans don't actually mean what they say when they say they're going to do something. Democrats genuinely mean it, and they try to do it. Can Democrats actually do that? Rotate, pack it? How can that be legal?
Well, Biden says he's going to get, Republicans and Democrats together. So, he'll call, Mitt Romney and a couple disenfranchised guys like Sass or whoever, and put them on a committee, and they want to talk about court reform, I guess is the way he put it. And so I don't see how they can do it under the law right now. But if they win the Senate, right, if they pick up 3 slots on the Senate and have the House and the presidency, wow, then they can make law and they can change the structure of the Supreme Court. They can pack the Supreme Court. They can reform the Supreme Court. And we're going to live in a new country that's no longer under the law, right? We've always been a country under the law, not under men and women who can, run around as despots. We've been very lucky to have this great run as a nation under law, and it's very important.
I've been upset about the national narrative, and honestly, I'm as mad at Republicans as I am at Democrats about this, around this police violence, police brutality. We need federal police reform. We have to. Why are we all continuing with the same narrative that the cops are the problem in the urban black community? That's flat out absurd. We can talk about education. We can talk about the nuclear family. We can talk about all these things that are actual solutions to the problem. But nobody instead has the balls, forgive my language anymore, to step up and say the cops are not the problem in these areas. And all we've done is enable these scumbags to go loot Foot Locker every single time.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you. It doesn't stop there. It goes to the China issue. I think some of the Republicans can't wait to start chasing the money again. But going back to the question you just had, it's because of our Republican leadership in the House under McCarthy, under McConnell. They just say, look, go run your own races. We're not going to raise any issue up to a general level for the country. Right? We're not going to stand for these big things that we need, like supporting our police. We're not going to speak as a party because we know 40 of you are in tough races and we could lose to the liberals. And so we keep losing the country little bit by little bit by little bit because our side always says, just make sure you win your own seat. And so a lot of it's just a lack of leadership by party. And I actually think you could win more seats if we ran strong as a party on that issue, for example. I mean, it's just a total winner. Law and order, taking care of everyone. It's folks in the inner city, the African-American community, the Latin community. They know the truth, right? And if you ran on a pro-police, crime reduction plan, I think you'd win. You'd win the areas that you need to win. But instead, we duck and cover. And they know only President Trump has a bullhorn big enough to win, right, where he can create his own media. And so it is tough being a Republican because the mainstream media, it doesn't matter what state you're in, they can run roughshod right over you, ruin your reputation, and crush you in a matter of months. And everybody knows that. So there is an element of weakness, but that's precisely why you need leadership. If you all stand together and you all share the same huge bullhorn through the media and the press, we could win, but we never do that.
Okay, so what's that mean for us when Donald Trump's gone? I mean, we might be a week away from no more Donald Trump. What does that mean for our party? Who's going to be the person that steps up?
Oh, it'll be the party of Davos and globalization and the billionaires. No one's going to step up. I mean, you'll have a few guys in the Senate, right? Cotton and some heroes who stand up individually, but there'll be one voice crying in the wilderness. Trump was the one person who could break through it, and that's why the left threw a fit because here you have basically a New York liberal that came in, and he is bigger than life, and he knows how to fight. And that's why the left flipped out, because now we're going to go back to all the wimps in our party leading and saying nothing and caving and leading from behind. And we lose that way. And the country loses, right? All of this is a result of the left taking over the core institutions in our country for decades. And we've let that happen. And the American people are to blame there too. They need to wake up any day. It's not the politicians' fault at base. The people need to wake up and figure out what's really going on in your country right now.
Dave Brat, thank you, sir.
You bet. Thanks, Jesse.
All right. I know you saw what happened with the Dow. I am not going to do the thing I love to do and say, I told you so. I'm only going to tell you this. We are in volatile times. I talk to financial people all the time. They all say the same thing. No need to freak out, but you do need to protect yourself. So now I'm telling you, there's no need to freak out. There's no need to do something drastic, but you have to protect yourself. Make a gold IRA from Gold Alliance part of your portfolio, not radical, perfectly sane. Make it part of your portfolio. And Gold Alliance, they make it so easy. They will walk you through this process, but you have 1 week until this election. Go to goldalliance.com/Jesse. That's goldalliance.com/Jesse. Get it started now. We'll be back. Joining me now to educate us all, creator of the Future File Legacy Planning System, of which I'm an owner, I should say, and host of the Roth Effect podcast, former investment banker, Carol Roth. Carol, you had a great message yesterday that I wished I could have just bottled up and sent out to everybody in the world, saying don't negotiate against yourself. In my sales manager days, I could have just strangled people that did this all the time. Please elaborate.
Yes, well, the first thing is in any negotiation, you don't want to be the first person to throw out a number. But if you are forced to throw out a number first because, you don't have full information, if somebody says that doesn't work for me, you don't throw out a second number until they have come back with something else. Once you put forth your own negotiation, then you stop. Second piece of that is once you have made the sale, and I think you said this as well, Jesse, shut up, stop talking. Once you have done that, do not undo the good work that you have done. Critically important, far too many people do it, and I'm sure I can see your head exploding right now with that. The third piece of it is don't basically talk yourself out of the action to start with. There are so many people who try and get into other people's heads and decide what might or might not work for them, so they never take the shot because they assume that they're trying to get into somebody else's psyche. You're then negotiating against your own position by trying to guess what somebody else is thinking. So don't do that. Take the shot. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But don't be your own worst enemy, basically.
Carol, don't you find people talk too much and don't listen enough, especially when they're trying to make a sale or negotiate? It drives me crazy. It's like people are uncomfortable with silence. If you would just shut up, they'll tell you what they're thinking, either overtly or otherwise. Shut up and listen.
Yeah, the irony of you saying that, Jesse, doesn't escape me. But yes, I do think that people spend too much time flapping their lips and not enough time listening. And like you said, that uncomfortable pause sometimes works to your benefit. It's actually an interviewing technique, which if you watch a lot of the kind of big name interviews from days past when we used to have journalism, you will see those interviewers doing that. If somebody is squirming, they wait for them to come in, and because people want to fill that space, eventually somebody will get to that point. But it does work to your benefit to really start working in fewer words. Theoretically, Twitter should help us all with that, right? It limits the number of characters. It should cull down the way that we think and the way that we present and communicate information. But unfortunately, that does not always translate, but practice makes perfect.
Social media. I'm not one of these back in my day type things. I realize social media is here. It's here to stay. And I realize, like anything else, there's a lot of negatives to it. But overall, I think it could be used for good. I have a lot of fun with it. I've met a lot of friends on it. It's cool. But do you see long-term negative effects for interpersonal relationships with people? Do you see this negatively affecting how people can interact, do interviews in the future?
So I think it's like anything else, it's how you choose to use it. And we have to remember that this is still in its early nascent stages. So we're all kind of the guinea pigs and trying to figure out how to get comfortable with it. Historically, we came from these smaller tribes. I don't know that we were meant to connect with millions of people globally at the same time. I think that's sort of overwhelming on most of our brains. But I think that if you spend time and you're thoughtful about how to use it and you can call that experience to be a better experience for you. I mean, you and I met on social media. That's, as you well know, a huge bonus for me, obviously. I think that there are a lot of good things. A lot of people have made work connections out of it, have made fantastic friend connections out of it. And I think that there is this temptation to want to get that, what I like to call ROE, return on ego, instead of ROI, return on investments. And unfortunately, return on ego doesn't pay your bills and a lot of times creates negative effects. So I think that we have to be smarter about how we consume it, how we curate what it is we take in, what we respond to. And when we all do that, we will make a better experience. But, human nature is human nature. And so obviously that's always going to be an issue no matter what the platform is.
Carol, I try the best I can with my sons to try to give them life skills that are going to, one, make them better human beings, certainly better human beings than I am, but allow them to have a great level of success in the future, or at least set them up for it. With the exception of manners, which I'm huge on. Yes, ma'am. No, sir. Hold the door open for people. Look someone in the eye. Shake hands. What are some life skills in the business world you think are underrated?
Attention to detail is the number one thing that I see is completely underrated. People are very sloppy about what they put forth and haven't trained themselves. I mean, that is, again, a skill. Just frankly, showing up and giving a damn. Most people don't care about other people. I mean, if you honestly, genuinely care and show that and put that forth, that's going to put you ahead of like 80% of the people to start with. And then, back in the day, my dad was always like, your name is everything. And that, what you do, there should be this level of pride around it. And I think that people have lost that. We now have this sort of scarcity mentality. We hear that you shouldn't want to work for the man and this is all BS. And it's not. I mean, this is your work. You can either create or consume or sit on your couch and do nothing or destruct. And creation is fantastic. In whatever form that takes, you should be proud of it. And I don't care if you're sweeping the floor or if you're running a multi-million-dollar organization, it doesn't matter. That pride in your work is your creation and how you're making the world a better place. And I think if you start to view it that way, the sky's the limit for you.
Carol, we have an election coming. I don't know if you've heard, but it's about a week away.
The first I've heard of that, Jesse.
Wow, look, allow me to break you the news. There's a presidential election coming. In all seriousness, we have one coming. And historically, the markets are a little wobbly at election time.
Yeah.
What should people just be holding serve and ignore your 401k and just walk away from it all for a few weeks till everything hashes itself out? Is there something specifically the markets want to see?
So the markets always hate uncertainty, which is just hilarious because it almost doesn't matter what the outcome is versus the fact that there is an outcome. And I think in this particular election, the big wild card is when that outcome will happen. Will that happen on election night, anywhere near election night, or are we going to be in January still fighting about this? So yes, you're going to see a lot of volatility in the markets, and the markets will eventually sort through that. I think that the markets don't really have a solid expectation for what's going to happen. Let's say there's Biden presidency. I think they have a pretty good understanding of what happens under a Trump presidency. But despite what the Democrats like to say, Biden is in very tight with Wall Street. He has taken a ton of money from Wall Street types. He has a lot of Wall Street folks advising him. And I would say that is a somewhat bullish sign of, to the extent that any president has sort of an effect on the market. There are a lot of other global macro things that figure in, and certainly that's not the only thing. But I don't think that in terms of who gets wrecked in the economy, it's probably not going to be the Wall Street elites. So yeah, I mean, just the strategy in general, best off to not spend too much time focusing on your 401k. Focus on investing and adding more to it versus worrying about it on a day-to-day basis.
Should people ever look overseas as far as indicators overseas from somewhere? And if so, where should they look?
I think it's always important to consider what's going on a macro level. And I think in your own investment portfolio, it's good to have, depending on your age and your risk tolerance, some exposure to overseas markets and emerging markets just to create that diversification in your portfolio. But certainly, I think that there are a couple of places I have my eye on. The one that nobody seems to be talking about that much is Turkey. Turkey is bad news. They're creating all kinds of conflicts all over the place. If there's a country that's going to drag everybody into a third world war, my money would be on Turkey. So keep an eye on them. I think the Russia issue is overblown. I'm sorry, I just don't think they're that much of a threat. And from a China standpoint, they have a lot of internal problems. I mean, this is a country that had a one-child policy. They have a bunch of now adult males who have nobody to marry. That is never a good thing. And so I think that you want to keep an eye on China, but more from an internal struggle standpoint versus that they're going to all of a sudden become the world reserve currency. I mean, nobody trusts any information out of China. I don't think they're going to take over the world reserve currency. So some of those narratives are a little bit out there, but I think that they have some really serious internal issues. The one-child policy and also the aging of their population from a demographic standpoint, they're going to have economic turmoil in the decades ahead. So for those who like to watch these macro things or just be intellectually stimulated, I'd say watch Turkey and watch China.
I don't understand why a society full of adult males who don't have to get married, I don't understand why that's a bad thing, Carol. That sounds like a very peaceful society to me.
Yeah, in history, it's always ended well when you've got a bunch of men of that age that don't have any mates. Always ended very, very well. Good policy.
Carol Roth, thank you, ma'am. All right, we'll be back. I opened up the show tonight. I told you to smile. I'm going to play you just a wee little video here. If this doesn't make you smile, you need to check and make sure you still have a heart.
Jaden has $1 bill, 1 quarter, and 2 pennies. How much money does he have? Jaden broke.
Jaden is broke. I'll see you tomorrow.